When I became president, one of the first things I did, I signed an executive order to advance equality and racial justice throughout our federal policies and all our institutions. That's because delivering the promise of America is not the work of one department. It has to be the business of the whole of the federal government. And today I'm proud to report that more than 90 federal agencies, including every cabinet department, are releasing more than 300 concrete and intentional actions and commitments to address systematic barriers to prosperity, equality, opportunity, and dignity everywhere. The bottom line, advancing equity is not a one-year project. It's a generational commitment. These plans are an important step forward, reflecting the Biden-Harris administration's work to make the promise of America real for every American. And I mean every American.
Every American. That's President Joe Biden back in April talking about how he wants to expand equity and racial justice in America when it comes to workplace and accepting people in. And he's mirroring that with his diversity within his own cabinet and within his administration, as we've seen from the beginning. He openly is pushing things like this. So according to Politico, though, there's a bit of a mass exodus of specifically Black staffers within the administration. But there's lots of layers to it. So let's break down some of these. This fascinated me. So at least 21 Black staffers have left the White House since late last year or are planning to leave soon. Some of those who remain say it's no wonder why. They describe a work environment with little support from their superiors and fewer chances for promotion. Crazy. The first big exit came in December when Kamala Harris' senior advisor and chief spokesperson Simone Sanders announced that she was leaving, ultimately for a gig at MSNBC. Since then, Harris senior aides Tina Flournoy, Ashley Etienne, I think, excuse me for messing up your name, Ashley, Vincent Evans, and public engagement head Cedric Richmond have all left. I've heard about an exodus of Black staffers from the White House, a Blaxit. And I'm concerned, said Spencer Overton, who's president of the Joint Center for Political and Economic Studies, which tracks government staff diversity numbers. Quote, Black voters accounted for 22% of President Biden's voters in November of 20. It is essential that Black staffers are not only recruited to serve in senior, mid-level, and junior White House positions, but are also included in major policy and personnel decisions and have opportunities for advancement. So this sounds and looks pretty bad, but there's a little bit of pushback from the White House and including Karine Jean-Pierre, who is now the new White House press secretary. This is what they had to say. The president is incredibly proud to have built what continues to be the most diverse White House staff in history, and he's committed to continuing historic representation for Black staff in all communities. That's what Jean-Pierre said. This is a normal time for turnover across the board in any administration, and Black staff have been promoted at a higher rate than staff who are not diverse. I told you guys, this is back and forth. It's gonna be a matter of who you believe and actually the reasons behind it, which we're gonna get to, so more. A number of the staffers who left said it was on good terms. Some departures were for graduate school opportunities. Others went to different cabinet positions, cabinet departments. Several said that they were leaving because of family matters. DeSource's figures said she wanted to focus on her young children, as did Conley. Also in an interview, Richmond, who is now Cedric Richmond, now is a senior advisor at the Democratic National Committee, said that the White House had given young Black staffers more responsibility than any other administrations, and that many of the people leaving were headed into important jobs with higher compensation. Okay, maybe it's not as horrible as we're thinking. Staffers concede that the salaries, which start at $48,000 for entry-level White House job, has made it difficult to retain Black employees in a city with a high cost of living. The pay in the White House is not traditionally very good, and a lot of Black folks in these roles don't come from wealthy families, said the second White House official that was talking about this. There's more. Waz, first, I wonder from different people's points of view, once you see these different things, because you have to either believe some folks saying that this situation is bad, not much room for advancement or even decision making, which is the next part about this. And there's other folks who just said, listen, some want to go home, some have been working hard on campaigns and they're tired, and some just want to get a better job. They're in a position where they don't have to make $48,000 a year in a place like DC.
Yeah, I think this is bad only in so much as Biden has branded himself as the DEI president for all time, right? Like that's the only thing that makes this an actual issue. And I would submit to people that, having all these Black staffers, what's it actually meant for Black people at large, period. This DEI stuff, I'm not gonna lie to you, JR, I've become more and more disillusioned by it. It just seems like it's a bunch of people that fit into certain categories, whether they be black or woman or gay or Asian or whatever, who get to have nicer jobs in these elite institutions while maintaining the status quo for the people of said groups at large, right? It's not like Biden's presidency was delivering some redistributive sort of agenda for the black masses that would lift them up out of their present circumstances. It's just a bunch of people like you and me, JR, in these nice elite jobs. And yes, it's nice when black people or whoever get promoted in these elite jobs, but I'm not gonna pretend that having more black people in Biden's cabinet or on his staff would have meant better policy outcomes for the black masses. That's ridiculous to me. Again, you put a black warden in a prison, it doesn't change the prison. You put a black guy in charge of the CIA, they're still, sponsoring dictatorships and overthrowing democratically elected governments all over the place. Like, it's just putting people in color in charge of the Death Star, which I don't think is actually the answer to anybody's question.
It showed itself. I remember when Obama was president, and many people who were opposing him said, these Republicans said this because it was part of their criticisms. What has Barack Obama done for black people? And they complained about it, but then in the meantime, they were doing everything they could to undercut black people in the country, because that's the system. That's why we talk about systemic racism and the way our institutions have been put in place to actually eliminate people. So really fast, this graphic number 8, I think highlights that. Someone who was a part of this whole thing says, they brought in a ton of black people generally to start without ever establishing an infrastructure to retain them or help them be successful. That's what said the third current black White House official. If there's no clear infrastructure of how to be successful, you become just as invisible in this space than you would if you were not in it. It just makes sense. And maybe it's just oversight. Maybe it's just something that's built off of. He wants diversity in there, but then he doesn't understand that you have to build an infrastructure for that diversity to make sense. And for those people to be in positions, even if they're not the head of the organizations, to be in decision-making positions, which is a part of this article as well. Many folks are there, but they're not changing things because they're not in a position to actually change things or even give the narrative that would change the policy that would do so. So where they come from and the reason for diversity, which many times libs and Democrats get, but they don't get that you have to change the way the infrastructure is set up so that those folks that you brought in for those diversity purposes can be effective. That's just the way it is.